Hi, Doug Stworski for the U.S. Access Institute, LLC. Today we look at one specific element in our lesson series called Accessibility by the Element. That's where we take a quick look at the accessibility requirements and one specific element. We also do a comparison of the different ADA and state access codes and standards. We try to cover it from coast to coast. Remember, our goal is eliminating the confusion and access compliance. So check us out at www.usaccessinstitute.com. Here we go. First, we start with the periodic table of accessible elements. It's not a real table in the access standard sense of things, but hey, we want to make access fun. Next, we're going to take a look at the requirements for marked crossings. In this discussion, we're talking about marked crossings on private property specifically. We are not referring to crosswalks that cross a public right-of-way because there are other requirements that deal with those situations, and usually there are specific requirements at the state and local level. First, we start with the definition for marked crossing. This definition can be found in the 2010 ADA, the 2012 Texas Accessibility Standards, the A117.1, the 2020 Florida Building Code, and the 2022 California Building Code. The definition reads, a marked crossing is a crosswalk or other identified path intended for pedestrian use in crossing a vehicular way. In this photograph, we have a marked crossing that leads to a trash enclosure in a housing project. Next, let's find out where and when marked crossings are required to be installed. Section 406.5 reads, curb ramps and the flared sides of curb ramps shall be located so that they do not project into vehicular traffic lanes, parking spaces, or parking access aisles. Curb ramps at marked crossings shall be wholly contained within the markings, excluding any flared sides. This references the marked crossing, but it doesn't tell us when it or where it's required. Here's a marked crossing from an accessible parking space to the accessible entrance to the building. In section 406.5, it says diagonal curb ramps provided at marked crossings shall provide the 48-inch minimum clear space within the markings, and diagonal curb ramps with flared sides shall have a segment of curb 24 inches long minimum located on each side of the curb ramp and within the marked crossing. But again, it doesn't tell us where or when the marked crossing is required. Another marked crossing across the driveway. Next, we got this advisory. It's in the 2010 ADA standards and the 2012 Texas Accessibility Standards. It is not in the A117.1 or the Florida, Minnesota, New York, or the California codes. It says accessible routes must connect parking spaces to accessible entrances. In parking facilities where the accessible route must cross vehicular traffic lanes, marked crossings enhance pedestrian safety, particularly for people using wheelchairs and other mobility aids. Where possible, it is preferable that the accessible route not pass behind parked vehicles. So this advisory doesn't tell us that it's required, it just says they do enhance pedestrian safety. And here's another example of a marked crossing. Here's a common question from the U.S. Access Board website. Do accessible routes that cross vehicular ways need to be marked as a crossing? No, accessible routes that cross vehicular ways are not required by the standards to be marked as a crossing. The standards only require access aisles at accessible parking spaces and accessible passenger loading zones to be marked. Local codes and traffic laws may require crossings to be marked. So again, we are only looking at marked crossings on private property. The ones in the public right-of-way are regulated often at the state and local level. And here we have another marked crossing. So in conclusion, looking through all these access standards, we find in the final analysis that marked crossings are at the discretion of the designer and or property owner when located on private property. There is no requirement. Thanks for watching, and remember that here at the U.S. Access Institute, LLC, our goal is eliminating the confusion and access compliance. So check us out at www.usaccessinstitute.com.